So we're going to talk about best vegetable plants for a raised bed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so what do you think about that?
Well, I love it because everybody wants to grow in a raised bed, I feel like nowadays, right? So I want to talk for a minute about tomatoes because tomatoes are everybody's favorite, I feel like.
I feel like
when somebody says that they want to grow a vegetable garden, usually the one thing they want to make sure they have is a tomato. Okay, so if you have been, used to growing conventionally in ground and you've been raising indeterminate tomato types. Indeterminates are tomatoes that just vine and they grow and they grow and they're going to continue to vine and grow until frost. And they also bear fruit all through the season, right? Those aren't going to be fun to try to grow in these smaller space raised bed garden sites, okay? So typically we want to suggest that people focus on determinate types of tomatoes. These are tomatoes that only get a certain height, usually 3 to 4 feet tall, and they typically bear their fruit in a pretty short period of time. So maybe like a 2 to 3.5 or 4 week period. These determinate types are gonna focus the bulk of their harvest in that smaller time frame. So that makes it a little easier, to get a larger volume of fruit at one time.
I do.
And a couple that I want to throw out there, just in case people are like, well, that's great, but give me some examples, right? So Roma tomatoes or San Marzano, those are two that kind of fall into that category. If you are more interested in some slicer type tomatoes, your traditional for putting on sandwiches and things like that, think Celebrity, okay? Home Slice, that's kind of a newer one that's been out there. And Defiant, okay? Anything that has the word bush in front of it, right? Patio tomatoes, anything that's got that patio word in it, you can, pretty much assume that it's gonna be a determinate type. But definitely those would all be suitable for growing in these smaller areas, raised beds, essentially. Then I feel like peppers, peppers usually come after tomatoes. So generally speaking, pepper plants, I don't feel like themselves take up a lot of space, but sometimes they can get a little tall and need some support. So these are even more compact versions, right? And a couple of our favorite, everybody wants a couple sweet bells, right? Because you're slicing those, using them and cooking all the time. Alliance and Islander are two that are more compact. Then there are some roasting sweet peppers. Mamma Mia is one that a lot of people are familiar with. That has a more compact habit, but the pepper itself is like more elongated. Think bell pepper, but kind of stretched out. That's what a roasting sweet pepper is. What about jalapenos? Everybody loves jalapenos. Gotta have, make it for salsa. Gotta have them. Emerald Fire. That
sounds hot.
It does sound hot, but that's a good compact short variety. Moving on from there, okra is a favorite of mine.
Got to have okra.
But what does everybody always hate about okra? It's so tall.
It just keeps going and going.
Keeps going and going, right? And shade out everything else in the garden. If you don't put it in the right spot, you can be setting yourself up for problems for shading things out. So let's look at some dwarf cultivars of okra. What about Candle Fire? That's a red okra. And then Annie Oakley is a green fruited variety. So those would be two good dwarf options for raised bed gardening.
Okra, how about that?
I know, who knew? Then I want to talk for a minute about cucumbers and other vining crops that are in that cucurbit family, essentially. So typically those take up quite a bit of space, and they could be challenging for growing either in containers or in a small space raised bed gardening. But for cucumbers, we have more options, I think, than people realize for compact growth habits, Saladmore is a good option and pretty easy to find, Saladmore cultivar. Patio Snacker, right? Again, with the context clues. Space Master. So it's it's using space masterfully. Market More 76 is compact, but could still need a trellis. So those other ones I mentioned could just be grown like as just a little compact bush without any trellising. But Market More, while it is smaller, it may still need some trellising. And then there's another little snacker called Diva. Diva It's too cute.
Yeah, diva.
Everybody needs to try a diva cucumber. So, what about watermelon? Oh my goodness, watermelon's a cucurbit. It's in that same group, but watermelons typically, gosh, they vine.
Yeah, they
and
just
they
sprawl all over the
vine and
place.
they vine and vine, and you have 10 feet of vine in one watermelon sometimes, right?
Right.
So that can be challenging.
Okay.
But we do have a few options now for more compact watermelons. I'm not saying
Which
these,
means exactly what though for a compact watermelon?
right. It means that it's not going to be as compact as these cucumbers we just talked about.
All right. I'm glad you said that.
But it's going to be much smaller, half the size of your, traditional watermelon.
Right, your Jubilee.
Right,
Okay,
yes.
all right. I got you.
So, Mini Love. That is a cultivar that comes to
like that.
mind
Mini Love.
for the watermelons. One of the primary advantages that I like with raised bed gardening is that we can make sure that they have really good drainage depending on the media that we fill them with.
Okay.
And so if you really love herbs and want to try your hand at growing a wide array of different types of culinary herbs, whether that's for cooking in your home garden or just enjoying ornamentally, because many of them have variegated leaves and beautiful flowering and
they smell good.
Right. So plants that have lots of different qualities. Raised beds are a perfect solution for that, because we can make sure that we are using medias that have excellent, really good, sharp drainage that are going to support many of those culinary herbs that prefer more Mediterranean type growing conditions, things like rosemary and lavender, think along those lines, thyme, stuff like that. So,
So we know we can do herbs.
definitely.
Okay.
I also wanted to touch on a few things that maybe we just shouldn't even consider. Let's just go ahead and mark it off the list for
so
growing
you
in
got
raised
something we can
beds.
mark off?
Does that sound okay for a
Okay.
minute?
Yeah, let's do that.
So I would not recommend people to try to grow sweet corn in a small raised bed area, right? Sweet corn is gonna be more successful when you can plant it in larger blocks. It's wind pollinated, and so if it doesn't have plenty of access and opportunity for the pollen to fall on the tassels of neighboring corn stalks, what's going to happen is you're going to get a plant that grows up to 2 or 3 feet, and then it's just going to stall out and nothing's going to happen. So I would discourage people from trying to grow sweet corn on a small scale.
Okay.
And pumpkins, I would just discourage also really trying to grow pumpkins in a small raised bed type situation. There are some small pumpkins, some small gourds, ornamental gourds that you could consider growing like over a trellis in a small space garden area.
I can see that.
But that wouldn't be one where I would want it to be taking up the
just all
ground
over the
space,
place, yeah.
because then you're just cheating yourself, right? Like,
okay.
I mean, would you rather have 1 pumpkin plant or 6 tomatoes, right? So you just kind of have to work with what you have there.
Would you be okay with them just sprawling out into the yard space?
I wouldn't,
wouldn't?
because I like mowing, right?
Right.
And so, if you want, it's going to be hard to manage. If you're weed eating around your raised beds, whoever's in charge of mowing your lawn's going to have to, be trying to go around those. So, I mean, if you don't mind it, definitely it's an option.
Okay.
You could just let them grow out into that extra space if you have extra space available.
If you have extra space,
And we have even more recommendations for cultivars that are going to do really well in containers and small space gardens that can be found on uthort.com. And the publication is called Cultivars for Small Space Food Production.
And we will have that link on our website.
Thanks.
For sure.
Thanks for having me.
Small compact.
Yeah.
I like it. I like some of those names too, Celeste.
They're cute.
Thank you much.